Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Digital Dentistry Decoded podcast. I'm Dr. Ahmad Al-Hassiny here from IDD. Now we have a special guest, like the many amazing guests that we've had on this podcast. And why I say special is because he's essentially solved an issue that has plagued labs since essentially the advent of digital scanners and intraoral scanners, etc. And that's problematic bites. So this is going to be a really interesting chat. We have Bjorn Zäuner here, the CEO of BiteFinder. Bjorn, welcome. Nice to see you, my friend.
Thanks. Glad to be here, my friend. Good to meet you.
Yeah, you too, man. You too. Now, you have done some incredible things in this industry. You found a really gap in the market. So before we jump into that, please introduce yourself. For those who don't know, I'm sure guys in the lab space know you very well. You've done amazing work there. But, us dentists, we often just send it to the lab. It's their issues. So maybe they don't know about BiteFinder. Please tell us all about yourself, your background, etc.
Sure. Happy to do so. So luckily I was born in a dental family, right? My grandma worked at a dental lab. My dad became a dentist. So I grew up as a toddler walking around the clinic. He had an in-house lab, and actually he had like 7 technicians and also helped his clinics that were like close by to support them with production. Of course, growing up in this environment, you have 2 options, right? Go all in or go all out. First tendency was go all out. So no teeth for me at the start. But eventually I came back because, I heard it my whole life. It is such a fascinating industry. It connects so many dots that I was interested in, like technology, you have chemistry, you have materials, you have supply chain, you have humans, right? You do something good for them. And everybody knows somebody who has been really, really, sorry for my language, fucked up by some dentists out there because either they don't care or they don't know better, right? And that's something I always had in mind to change because there's so many archaic like processes involved in dentistry. But I started first with a bit of sales, right? Implants, scanners, printers. I was more drawn to the technology part of things. Realized that becoming the next like Henry Schein will be a bit tricky. So sales had some limits. And then I got into production, opened the milling center first. And then from there, I went down the whole road to orthodontic lab, restorative. And then eventually in this whole lab environment, we developed software, all kinds of software, because we didn't want to hire another technician, because we are so used to solve problems with our hands, right? Because that's the artisanship. That's also what's nice. But it's so limited, right? It's hard to scale. You have these master dental technicians sitting and checking every case like a hawk, right? Really looking for that issues to prevent one thing, that the dentist, right, gets a shitty crown, right? That they have to adjust, send back, have that whole remake, have that whole annoying phone call. Why the fuck did you send me this again, right? Who did you hire again now that screwed up my crown, right? That was the main purpose, trying to figure out how can we solve all these issues. And we had 3 main reasons that we failed cases in the lab. Number 1, occlusion, the bite, too high or too low. And number 2, shade. And number 3, approximal contacts. So these are, number 4, nobody reading or writing what they want. But yeah, these are the main things. And long story short, one of the biggest improvements we could achieve for our own lab out of necessity was building BiteFinder, basically. So we used it internally to digitize the stone model department. We stopped pouring stone models. It was like 5 years ago. We started scanning impressions, right? And if you scan 2 impressions, you have 2 jaws in space. And what then? You 3D print the models, hand articulate and rescan. That's weird. So that's where we thought, can we just teach the software, the computer, to see with computer vision what our hands feel, right? Like how we articulate 2 models, how the patient bites, how the 2 jaws fit each other. And then, it was so powerful, helped us so much in our daily operations that we decided to make it public, offer it to everybody else. And since then, it's been crazy.
Congratulations, man. And I love your t-shirt. For those who are just listening in, it says, "Bad bites suck." I mean, that's so on brand. I love it. When did you start BiteFinder? Which year did it go public?
We went public the first time. I mean, we incorporated a company in March of 23. So IDS was our first hello to the world. March 2023. Yes, so almost
3 years, man.
years now. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. I actually thought it was longer because of how popular it is in the lab space. And it's funny, I relate as well. I also come from a dental family. Some of you may know, mother, father, brother, all dentists. And unlike Bjorn, I had to go all in. I had a Middle Eastern mother, so I didn't have a choice. So I was all in. I became a dentist, obviously, and I love the tech just like you. And you're also a young guy. It's amazing, man, what you've achieved. But so, in essence, for people who are trying to figure out, okay, what does the software do? It helps articulate models correctly and also correct, as your T-shirt says, bad bites. Is that kind of the elevator pitch of what Bite Finder does?
Yeah, so for the dentist especially, we make sure that when BiteFinder is involved, you have less chairside adjustments and remakes, right? Because we take the two models and we analyze and make sure that the bite is good. And if we detect it's not good, then we make it better, right? Because there's this slight tilts, there's all these different factors of why, especially a scan can go wrong. But it was the same in the analog ways forever in dentistry, right? Especially as a dentist, you were dependent on how the lab tech put those two stone models into this weird articulator thingy, right? And if he tilts it a little bit, then the whole case is screwed, and you spend half an hour grinding on zirconia, and that's like going through hell, right? That's no fun.
100%. And so for people, again, trying to understand this, BiteFinder, the software or the app or whatever you want to call it, I believe it's on the cloud now and it's a browser-based sort of thing.
Yeah.
Is it plugging in into the scanner software or something like exocad? Where is it plugging in to do what it needs to do?
Yes, so it's a standalone software. That's how we started. So you can just put in upper and lower jaw scan. You click one button, and then it does the magic. It puts the two jaws together how they should be. That's how we started. And then we developed a few more features, but getting into that a bit later. How you can use BiteFinder is very determined on your workflow. And for us, it was always high important that we are available where our users are. So we didn't want to build another standalone tool. We wanted to be there where you need us, right? So that means we're directly integrated into exocad. We're integrated into many scanners already. We will be integrated into many more. Now also in 3D printers, right? So since we are improving our feature landscape as well, we also improve all the integrations. So we want to be everywhere. We don't want to tie you into this is how you have to do it. No, we accommodate to where you are right now.
That's cool, man. And look, I think, I love the name as well, BiteFinder. And I think the problem you're solving is super obvious. And you've sort of answered this already, but like you as a young kind of tech entrepreneurial guy, how did you know this was worth pursuing? Was it just basically from the issues you guys were facing in your own internal lab? Was this what made the light bulb moment that, hey, this is a problem that needs to be fixed?
Yeah, I had a wish list. It was like a handwritten pen and paper list of a few things that I think would make a big difference in the daily operations in the lab. And this was one of it. And it solved a major problem internally, right? Optimizing the whole stone model department thing, reducing the remakes. In most labs, it's not only the external remakes, like the cases you get back from the clinic that are so bad they didn't want to touch it and spent a half an hour to adjust it, but all the cases that come back. But it's not only the worst point. The worst point is all the internal remakes. Like imagine labs care about saving dentist time, because if you fuck up once too many, they send it somewhere else because their time is precious, right? You need to spend time with the patient, and if something goes wrong, you have to explain why the fuck are you doing this right now, right? Why are you grinding on this like for an hour, right? It still doesn't get better. So the internal remake rate is horrible, right? So you mill crowns sometimes 2 times, 3 times, adjust it, go back, another glazing, another ceramic layer. Oh shit, broke, fuck again, redesign, remill. It is brutal, right? So the whole internal process is so thin because you do so many things multiple times with multiple hands and multiple people involved, right? You have the junior, you have the lab owner, you have the supervisor, you have the master dental technician, and it all goes in circles. It's crazy. So all this could be resolved by making sure that the data is good that you work on from the beginning, so you don't have to fix the shit later on. So that was the main purpose. And to be honest, yes, I had a gut feeling that this is important, but not in a way as we're experiencing it now, right? And I never would have guessed that the adoption, although it can be still always much faster, right? But it's crazy, right? We have more than 12,000 people worldwide who signed up for our software in 3 years now, right?
It's incredible, man.
Yeah.
And especially with the rise of digital, right? I think you came in the right place at the right time, man. Digital is everywhere, and I think bad bites, as you put it, are one of the banes of intraoral scanners, and you see it all over the show. And, I always see it's fascinating with incorrect bites on an intraoral scan, and I have to wonder, back how dentists used to do it with a triple tray, and you bite down. Is a triple tray bite really that much better than an intraoral scan?
No, Jesus, no.
So why is there so much dramas about the intraoral scanner bites? Is it just because we can see it now? We can see the interdigitization. We can see the open bites. Why is there
Yeah.
so much drama right now?
Yeah, it's much more visual, right? I mean, and most users, let's be honest, right? Most times it's assistants and dentists using scanners. They've been sold that you can do this so fast, right? It's all about the speed. You can make a scan in 20 seconds. Yeah, but like it's okay if it takes a minute if it's good, right? It doesn't make sense to save that 40 seconds, right? The problem with the triple trays, as you mentioned, is it was sent to the lab and that was a black box. You don't know what happens with the case. And
Yeah.
look, there's so much going on that you try to make it right. And it was the same with analog bites, right? Like the wax or silicon bite. And it was always the same. It was so hard to get the right amount. So either people send you this tiny bit of silicon bite or they send you this block of where you're like, oh, this poor patient, oh man. But yeah, that's brutal. And now the visualization is just much clearer, right? And that's what I like about it. And some people don't in our industry because it makes things transparent or more transparent at least. And if you did shitty work before, it now puts it on the screen basically, right? And it's like, oh yeah, shit.
And honestly, I totally agree. And I feel like that's why taking scans are improving people's preparations somewhat, you would know. But I think it's just the visualization aspect,
Yeah.
An impression, you're like, oh, that looks good. It's a lab's problem. But when you take a scan and you see your prep in HD in front of your face, you're like, man, those margins are really average.
Yeah. I mean, you spoke an interesting word that always bothered me in dental, and that led to the first like additional development we did. You spoke about average, right? So always a pain in my side was the average value articulator. Because as I said, from the end times, we had always the people who put it wrongly in the articulator. And then not only that, it's this weird thing that opens the upper jaw, which like no human is capable of doing. At least I didn't see one. And it uses average values, right? It uses like always whatever you put in 25, 30 degrees. But that is our second slogan besides the bad bites suck is we say no human is average. And they are not, right? You might have a few degrees less, right? And this other guy and this other girl might have a few degrees more on how they can open their jaw. And making the jaw simulation much more accurate, like the dynamic occlusion part of things, if you hit that to be more individual, more patient-specific, you also get a much more accurate result, right? Because it is not pre-grinded on exocad with like 30 degrees. It is adjusted based on your own movement that we capture out of the anatomy, right? So after we fix the static bite, we then try to analyze and basically reverse engineer like a little scout. We look for all this wear and tear, and then we simulate the lower jaw movement according to the anatomy, right? And then you can use that in exocad to have like a virtual try-on and adjust the design based on this jaw movement instead of using an average value articulator.
And it may sound like a silly question, and you're convinced AI can do this because there's going to be a lot of skeptics, right? That they're like, well, AI gets things wrong, and look, people have some weird wear, and how's the AI actually really doing this? But you're convinced that it can learn and it can get this right.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're basically simulating whatever is there, right? And yes, we still have and should always have, there's always a big debate, right? Experienced people who validate the result. Of course, right? There's still a dental technician who does the design. There's still a dentist who has to verify and put the crown in. But what we see now over millions of cases is that by using a more specific motion, gets you a more specific tailored crown in the end, right? It's like buying a suit, right? Get it standard or get it custom, right? Get it tailored. It's very different. But if you don't know, I mean, what did we do so far, right? Most dentists were not happy with the occlusion, and they, you see all these RXs, and we had the same in the lab, right? Please make this crown 0.5 non-occlusion. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's a solution, right, for not having to adjust the crown, but the consequences, I mean, you have an antagonist, I don't know. I don't think it's the right solution, right?
That's like a bazooka to a fly solution.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Just avoids facing the problem, right? And we always try to look at it from first principle approach, like why do we even have that problem? And we always had that problem because the initial orientation of the two jaws are critical for every other workflow step. It doesn't matter which one. That the bite is the beginning of every case.
100%. It's all about the data, and the technician works on that data. It's fascinating though. Do you guys still run the milling center, or is that packed up and you guys are full force on Bite Finder?
Yeah, no, last year, or the milling center was gone a few years ago already, but yes, now full force on software because there's so much to do. We're traveling so much. I mean, you feel that, right? It's very hard to run a local business at the same time while flying all over the world. I initially didn't want to do that because I mean, Bitefinder was born out of necessity, right? Out of sweat and blood because you know the pain. And I think that's very powerful, and that makes it so different from sitting somewhere and imagining, I want to do a business, I want to write software, or what can I do? Oh, dental might be interesting. And then you don't know, right? That's the main difference. But in the end, we have so many awesome users worldwide. I can almost go anywhere in the world and call somebody and say, hey, can I spend a few hours in your lab? I wanna just feel how it is. I want to see what your pain is, and maybe get some inspiration for what we want to solve next. So the whole idea of staying connected is now actually on scale and on multiple levels, right? I can now look into 1,000 people labs and also 1 people labs, right? All this scope is just much bigger.
That's incredible. I would love to see your data, and we're going to get into that. Some of the things that you have seen, because people say that labs see all the issues with dentistry, and well, you see all the labs, so that's incredible. I think the other interesting thing that's been beneficial for you is this kind of boom in AI in the recent years. AI seems to be slapped on everything, for better or worse. We're getting a bit of AI fatigue. Bite Finder, what do you think are the main things that people misunderstand about a company like this?
When we're in an evolutionary phase right now, right? I mean, we started as an internal basic tool to solve one part of our problem. And then we made it public, and that came with a lot of challenges. But we evolved from a single feature into an end-to-end quality control platform, right? It's so many things that we have to deal with at the moment that we never thought we had to, because the digitization layer that is fundamental for us to work with most of our customers is just not there yet, right? It means working with clinics is even harder because getting us integrated into a practice management system is very tough. One, at the same time, most scanners are maybe connected to a practice management system, but the data is still stored on a separate database and not in the PMS. And therefore, if we now connect with an API to a PMS, we can actually work with that. So that makes it very hard. And in the lab, it's the same. LMS is not typically very open, not standardized. And there's a lot of silos. So basically, we sometimes feel like a boutique consulting company going into labs. I don't know if you ever watched MTV, there was a show, Room Raiders, where they basically get into people's homes and look for the dirty stuff. So sometimes I feel like that when we go into labs and clinics, like, oh, what's going on here? Let's see how we can fix that. But yeah, the whole availability and organization of data is still very basic in dentistry. It makes our life quite hard. But long story short, I think what most people get wrong is that this is one thing. And the fix for a very dirty case, a very bad bite, and yes, bad bites suck, but where do you draw the line? And I think overall, what I like to see ourselves is that we look at every scan every day worldwide, and we make sure that the scan QC is good. Like the scan itself is good, the bite is good, and then only the good things shall pass, right? And we make sure that, like an antivirus on your computer, we make sure that bad scans shouldn't go into production, and we make sure that good bites become great, right? This little thing that saves you another 10 minutes per crown. I think this is the most powerful thing and what most people still don't yet understand, but this is where it will be.
You're totally right. And look, the whole silo concept, I mean, Rune from 3Shape used to talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
And it's still an issue, really, and no one's really figured it out. It's becoming more of an issue now with all the different digital tools. And I don't know, is there light at the end of the tunnel? It doesn't seem like everything is connecting as we would like. There's a lot of talk about cloud platforms and connecting things, but they're not exactly that exciting for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating problem. Someone needs to solve it.
Yeah, I mean, it's super hard because you can't force it, right? Even if I mean, I love to do it, but it's so hard because we're dependent on all the other parts of the workflow that will open up their data. And in dentally especially, it's very, everybody wants to have control over their piece of the world, right? So it's very hard for them to give up control, right? Because they feel like they lose the customers. And closed workflows have their benefits, right? Don't get me wrong, right? If you have a very closed workflow, there's also less room to do something wrong. It's a bit like compare iPhone to Android, right? You have less options, you have less customization features, but you're overwhelmed sometimes with all the functionality you have. And you want something that everybody can use, no matter what. And in the end, I think there is light. I think most people are now, since more and more data gets digitized, there's also more requirements, more pushback, right? A lot of our users help us push the company behind to open up and share the data with us. So I see light at the end of the tunnel, but it will be a few more years, definitely, until this will be standard.
Still some time to go. You talk about the evolution of Byfinder, and as a guy, it's also interesting that you said, you have a tactile feel of this. Maybe not as much or maybe more now, but I think it's fascinating. You're not just like a tech bro that decided to disrupt dentistry. You experience pain points firsthand, created a solution that's resonated with a lot of people. But in this journey, is there anything, about the market that you initially got wrong, or maybe wrong is too strong, but something that surprised you in this evolution about dentistry and launching this software?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I'm a very impatient person. It definitely is slower than I like it to be. And the thing is, if you talk to the right people, you see, and I know I met you guys at IDS the first time, right? And when we launched, of course, we had just getting started, a very decent sized booth, but nobody knew us, right? We were completely new. So the people who came and who understand, you see the spark in their eyes. And that is beautiful. And that drives us every day. That people say, what you did is amazing. It's helpful. It's a game changer. It saved my ass, right? All these kind of things. They're so empowering. What I still hate is that we have this concept, not only in dentistry, but overall, of adoption. Right, you have the innovators that come first, you have the early adopters, and then you have the early majority, you have the late majority, and then the laggards at the end, right? And it's like a Gaussian distribution. So you see, you have like just 2% of people who have to do and who love to do this first step, and you're one of them, right? You love to look at new tech and play with it and see how to do things better, right? And then we have the people who are already digital, and that's another maybe 5 to 10% of people who know and have some kind of control over their digital workflow and know, okay, I need to improve this, and here's a new tool, I can plug it in. But most of the people we can't get because they might have just bought a scanner, or they don't even have a management system where all the data gets in. They don't know, they're not like intrinsically motivated enough to look for a solution, or they maybe not even aware of the problem, right? I mean, especially with dentists, most of them, and that's very concerning, see it as just part of their daily life to spend an hour every day to adjust restorations, right? It was always like that. You always get something that was not great and you had to like adjust it a bit. And most people, they can't wrap their head around that it's possible to change that. So that's what I got wrong, that it takes It takes long. I mean, we got a long way. We have a lot of many amazing users, but still we're so early, and it's much harder to get into the weeds of the market and convince all the people and change their workflows.
Is there anything in the market, you talk about, changing that perception, but is there anything in the industry that you think you disagree with completely? I think you've already touched on it, but is there anything that is kind of against the grain with that, where you're pushing Bite Finder?
I think one big part is the transparency thing, right? And what we do now with digitizing work and then setting a control layer on top of it, right? So we look at all the scans, we give it quality scores, we check for everything. This transparency is something a lot of people don't like because it shows that something is wrong. It gives clarity if something really goes wrong and there's disputes about treatments and all that, right? So it gives much more clarity. One benefit of that is that we are like companies, so we have this Swiss neutral ground of where many people are helpful because labs have a hard time telling a dentist that scan sucks, right? We can say bad bites suck. We can say your bite sucks if it's a software that sits on the scanner. And here's what you can do better. But if the lab and dentist dynamic, it's very hard to do that because nobody wants to be pointed the finger as like, you did wrong, right? Humans don't like that. So that's something I know it's hard, but I don't agree with the current market standards that everything is tried to put under the rug and not talk about it. That's something I strongly disagree with. I like to have these things more transparent. And also a little bit what we touched before, open integrations and all that.
Yeah, and that swept under the rug thing, that's been a case for as long as I remember, and it touches back on what you said, where if a dentist gets told by their lab that their work sucks, they usually just go to a different lab. And I think that's kind of the disconnect there, where dentists are not getting the feedback loop because the labs see all the issues. The labs have done and fixed and treated all the problems they see. And we really need that feedback loop and better relationships with your technician to be receptive to advice. But look, as a dentist, I understand too. You've had a long day. The patient may be tricky. They give you a hard time. You send it and you just want it to be done. You can't bring the patient back in and tell them I have to redo this and try and make up a reason. So it is very, very tricky.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to jump into the weeds now because you, sir, see all the data everywhere. And so you must have incredible data about all these different scans. And it's things that people really want to know. First, let's just jump into bites. So is it mainly just operator error? Like a lot of people have issues with bites with scans, and the dentist may see it and still send it to the lab. I mean, most people can see an open bite now on a scan. Most people can see, interocclusing arches. What's the issue here? I think we've touched on it, things move and etc., but a lot of people just can't figure out why this is happening. Is it the scanner? Is it the operator? We get a patient to bite down, we take a scan on one side, and then we look at the arch and the molars are going through each other, and a lot of dentists don't know what to do. What's the fix? Let's start at the clinic, because a common fix is take a bite on both sides. So obviously take full arch scans. Is that a good start?
That's a really good start. I mean, look, when we started with Europe, right? And Europe, we really don't have quadrant scans that much. So and then when we got into the US, which is our biggest market, there's labs who get like 80% quadrant scans. And I'm like, how do you even work on that from time? Because you're lacking complete information. Like it's so hard. But anyhow, we got better with quadrants as well. But yeah, the first thing is please make a full arch scan, right? Especially for occlusion, it's very important that is there stability on the other side or not, right? Because that will determine a lot of the solution. So the second thing is, if you do scan the bite, yes, scan both sides. I mean, but it comes also with a caveat, right? Adding a second bite scan will also add another variable that is usually also a little faulty. But maybe let me go high level. 3 main reasons why bite scans fail. Number 1 is not in order of magnitude, but the scanner. The scanner, from a mechanical view, doesn't matter the brand, right? They all have the same mechanic on how to capture a bite. You scan upper jaw, you scan lower jaw, and you put them, you say, patient, please get into occlusion. You scan this side. If we're lucky, they scan the other side. And then the single jaw scans will be matched into this bite scan. So there's a first error that this matching can and will go wrong. So that's a matching error, technical error. And that the second thing is the user, so dentist or assistant who performs the scan, they're busy, tired, new patient is in a chair, and all that, not trained yet or don't care, right? Let's not forget, there's also people, unfortunately, who don't care as much. And that's the reality, and we need to build systems around that. That's life. So how they perform the scan, right? Do they just don't look and just put it in somewhere and then, okay, here we go, send? No, right? That's not how it should be. And the third one, which is actually the most important one, is the patient. The patient has no fucking idea what's going on most of the time, right? I mean, tell them to make a bite, go into occlusion, they do all kind of weird stuff, right? Because they don't know, right? Or they can't. They maybe have just come out of surgery. They're completely numb or whatever. They might be afraid of the dentist, so they're shaking. They have usually, why you go to the dentist, you have pain, right? So you bite more on this side than on that side if you have pain here. So that's also creating a lot of imbalance. And then the other thing is extreme patients, elderly homes, right? People with Alzheimer's, people who have all kinds of problems where it's so tough to scan the bite. So that is very, very tough. And overall, this mixture of these three variables will result in almost impossibility to capture a good bite. So the whole foundation of capturing something always involves a measuring error, right? So that's what we get out of the equation is we just take upper and lower jaw scan and we simulate the bite. So we completely remove most of the errors that can happen if you do it the old school way.
It's funny, you said a very political answer there that all scanners are okay. You see the data. Let's hear it, Bjorn.
Yep.
What scanners, in your opinion, from the data that you've seen, are better? And let's not put them all on blast.
Yeah.
Let's say the top three. Which scanners do you think you could say and confidently recommend to your colleagues that are dentists?
In the end, I see it from the data that there's no difference in overall bite quality across the scanner brands, right? And I think it's important because where we're heading, I think, is the scanner is an entry door into the digital world. And it should be similar to buying a computer. It should be irrelevant what kind of hardware you have. It's more important what you do with it, right? And what's next, right? So that if you buy a Dell or HP laptop, it shouldn't make a difference, right? They're assembling parts, and so is a scanner. I mean, I wouldn't downplay it, but it's a camera. So if you buy a scanner that has decent material parts, the rest is software and workflows, right? And then you can debate if you like them wireless or not, if you like them a bit heavier or not, right? But it's very much preference and not the fundamental technology that is super, super tricky. Besides, of course, let's look at a few fancy stuff like NIRI, right? Or all these diagnostic features that are super cool. That will be a differentiator if you need them. But if you just look at scanning 3D data, like creating a 3D file from the jaw, it doesn't really matter. What we can see, and I'm not sure if I can share the names here, but what we can see is overall, there's like 95% of all the scans across the brands that don't pass the quality standards. That is what we see.
95%.
Across millions of scans. And that is brutal. And yes, people will try to compensate with, yeah, but it's not that bad, and yet it would still be good enough. And we have a hard time with this good enough attitude, right? And while I see benefit of that in production, you don't want to make everything perfect. In the end, we tend to forget this, especially on the lab and industry side. Behind every scan is a patient. It's not just a 3D something. It's not a chair. It's not a design of a desk, right? It's a patient, and we shouldn't be okay with this good enough. I think that's very important. And we have this overall concept of better dentistry, and I think part of it is looking closely at data. So what we can see though, and I give you a little insight on that, and I personally, unfortunately or fortunately, depends, looked at more than 200,000 scans over the last 3 years. So you see a difference in errors across the brands. So some have more completely weird bites where you can't work at all with, and others have a tendency to have like too much intersection, like over occlusion, and some have.
Can I guess the brand?
And
Can I guess the brand? Well, no, I'm not going to do that to you. The poor guy's trying to do integrations, and I get him onto the podcast to put brands on blast. Okay, we're not going to play that game. That's fine.
And some have open bites, right? So there's some tendency of how to solve the problem, and some companies ended up doing, okay, they look for the over occlusion, right, intersection of the two scans, which is not like super possible in reality, and then they just move the jaws on the z-axis until they are like out of contact, and then I don't know, that's weird. That's not how a human jaw axis works. But yeah, that's definitely the most interesting thing we see is they're all producing mostly wrong scans or quality of bites, but how is very different. So that's quite interesting.
I do wonder, and then so when you say the quality check, that's just purely bites. That's not the quality of the preparation, or are you talking about quality of preparation as well?
So we started with the bite. We started with static occlusion. We then went into the dynamics, right? And then we came across, and like it was destiny, right? So across from us when we launched was xSNAP. And xSNAP, well, at IDS 3 years ago. So xSNAP is now part of this whole concept here. And that's very beautiful because we then went into, okay, now we can take a scan, we optimize the bite, and then we take it from and make it a tangible physical model from the digital world, so we don't lose accuracy. So we then went to the next step, creating models, printable models automatically with the articulator on the back, and not a regular 3D printable articulator, which was cool by itself, but we take the motion that we generate and we create this, we call it specific articulator, where we have the motion create a specific condylar path and incisal table for every patient, because we said every patient deserves its own articulator and not just like slamming and gluing some kind of stuff on it. So it was always a bit weird. So that's very nice.
And for those of you listening, sorry Bjorn to interrupt you, for those of you listening, not seeing what Bjorn is showing, in essence the xSNAP kind of looks like a ball and socket in a way. So they're making the articulation function not just up and down or with the little pins. They're kind of making it a more of a 3D articulation, which is super cool. And you guys acquired xSNAP?
Yeah, so xSNAP is part of the group. Yeah, so it's just a perfect combination, and we don't want to stop there, right? So most of our users ask us for multiple things, and I talked about that in another podcast a few weeks ago. So what is super critical for us is that we drown in user feedback, right? We love to stay connected. We love to get all that input, what's next, right? And try to make sense of it and build it into the product. And most people say the scanner is the entry into the digital world. And this is where we are then, right? And this is where they want us to do more. They want us to do the scan QC in general, not only the bite. So that is the next thing that we did, right? Look at more scan information, not only the bite, right? Do we have holes? Do we have artifacts? Do we have non-manifolds? Do we have inverted triangles? Do we have all kinds of metrics? Stitching errors, right? Did the dentist or the assistant scan too slow? Then they create a lot of pictures, over scanning. Or did they scan too fast? All these kind of things, are there holes that have been closed by the scanners? We need to know, right? Because then we can check what was the root cause of why something fails. We can't just get a scan and then accept that that's how it is, that is reality. So all these kind of things, and then it went on to, okay, can we determine insertion angles? Can we detect blood and saliva and find margins, the margin finder? So all these kind of things, they happen because they need to happen There's a high demand for all these kind of things. So we take our steps deeper and broader, optimize the bite even further, generate more motion, simulate chewing, all these kind of things we did, adding more data to the new platform. So we now can also process CBCT and face scans and all these kind of things to create a more holistic view on all the things, which is super powerful. And then, the next thing is do stuff before and after. There's so many amazing things, and we're going to share a lot on the exocad Insights event end of April now in a few weeks. We're going to Mallorca. Will be a great event, and we're going to share a bit more on what's coming soon, but I'm not giving away too much. There will be some kind of opening the platform to multiple services because people still don't know how to access AI designs. And AI design is very much dependent on good data and especially a good bite, right? So we will focus on adding these services and QCing them. So we have an automated QC because currently there are people working in labs, they upload cases to AI design, then they look at it, man, not good, maybe I make some adjustments. Not really efficient. You just have another layer of software and another time added to the whole thing. So that will come. And a few more interesting things, but I can't share them yet.
We'll have to keep our eyes peeled. And it's also interesting you talk about Margin Finder.
Yeah.
We talked about the bite a lot and, the simple fixes, or maybe not so simple to get a good bite on the onset. How many margin issues do you see? I can't imagine that has to be the simplest thing to fix chairside. And I've been raving on about just place some retraction cord. But how many people actually control the gingiva when they scan? Is it like a fraction? Is it a percentage?
Forget it. It's not even recognizable in the data. It's so bad how little people care from time to time. And with margins and prepping teeth, you know the drill. It's very much, do you care? And do you have the motoric capability to do something, right? And do you understand the basic concept of, if it's like this, it doesn't work? But some people don't have this spatial understanding. So what I think is important, and that's where you need to figure out where to draw the line. Can we detect if a prep is even workable? And can we just say, stop, red light, you're not allowed to send this scan anywhere. Improve your prep, right? This is how it should look.
I've been talking to scanner companies a lot, and the only one that's kind of done that is Dandy, with their software that does kind of an AI analysis of the prep, which is fascinating. Yeah, it makes sense. Why is this AI analysis not in more scanners at the point of scanning? Why is so much AI analysis going into diagnostics, which I agree with you is cool. But I mean, the bread and butter thing, as you see in your data, it's a single crown, right? That is the most common thing.
Yes.
Why is there not more emphasis on having some AI scanner side that says, look, highlight this. I can't see the margin. Don't send it to a lab. Highlight this. The preps are, there's concavities or they're just converging outwards. And why do you think? Is it the scanner companies don't want the litigation and they don't want kind of that pushing dentists and kind of making the calls, or what? You'd think this would have come sooner.
I agree, but to be honest, it is a very tough problem. So that's one part. Part two, scanners are up to this point, and now it's changing a bit, are mostly hardware, right? So they focus a lot on hardware, finding the right, similar to printers, right? Focusing on finding the right cameras and the mirror. And then they focus on, can we heat the mirror so that you don't need to clean it and all that kind of stuff, right? So there's a lot of small things, mainly hardware focused. And then the second thing is a bit of why I think we can do stuff that, although we're much smaller, if you're such a big company, you hire a lot of developers, you have a lot of communication overload, you have people who never been into a dental lab, who never been into a dental clinic, right? So all our employees, even the ones that don't work with the customer, we let them hear dental podcasts. We tell them to go to a lab, to do all this stuff, to look at it and feel it, right? Because if you don't know, then it's very hard to do it. That's number one. Number two is, the basic answer is because it works. still works. It always worked like that, right? They don't want to fix something that is somehow solved but very badly. They want to do new cool things like the diagnostic part of things, right? So I don't know, I can't tell you exactly why, but the main thing I believe is they also don't have to, right? So there's a lot of cool companies out there doing nice stuff, right? And there's small groups of people who can solve problems on a much deeper level with way more effort. So they should focus on integrating all these cool little technologies and not try to do everything themselves. I have that conversation every time, right? Oh yeah, we just fix the bite ourselves. Yeah, okay, why didn't you do that already the last 10 years? Right? I mean, it's not that it's like, oh yeah, now we do it and it's done, right? It's very complicated and you have a gazillion other problems. We solved it, just integrate it and allow the people to use it. I mean, it's very cumbersome for so many dentists who like to use us. They then scan and they download, they open the bite finder software and then they put it back. And it's, dentists don't have time, right? So they need a smooth
Annoying.
workflow.
It's annoying. It has to be totally integrated. Anything that involves exporting and importing into a platform just doesn't work that well.
Yes, and it's in rarely any other industry the case. So that's very frustrating. So we push very hard on that open integration policy because I think it's foundational to allow data to flow where it needs to go. That's number one. And number two, where we focus on, since we're working a lot with big labs and DSOs, so massive volume, it is what we do allows quality at scale. And I think that's super important because right now with all this consolidation, you have something at scale, but it's definitely not quality, right? It gets cheaper and the labs have to produce crowns for way less. Doesn't really mean the patient pay less. So it doesn't really mean that there's any quality scale effect at the moment. And that's a bit weird.
Probably a decline.
Absolutely, because we have a scarcity of technicians who actually know what needs to be done. And we have a scarcity of technology who can translate what needs to be done in an automated fashion, right? Because what happened is we digitized a lot of analog things like an articulator, right? They basically put a 3D version of an articulator on the computer. It's like, it was bad before. It was useful because it was on a bench, but it's still not great, right? Why did we just replicate it and then, okay, here we go. I think that is super important to allow this quality at scale, make things more affordable. I mean, look, we have US as our main markets and we work on some interesting things with some big companies at the moment. There's 40 million people in the US who don't have teeth. They're fully edentulous and they can't get a denture because one, there's not enough dentists and technicians to produce one. And two, it's too expensive. They can't afford it, right? And spending a few $1,000s on a very basic removable denture is crazy, right? I get it, but it's because the process is so cumbersome. The average dentist needs like 6 appointments to get a denture in. I mean, what the hell? It's crazy.
And your focus is to change these sort of things.
Yeah, we have to. I mean, we have to. It should be a basic right of a human to chew, right? I mean, to eat food and not just swallow soup all day. And yes, did they maybe eat too much things that they shouldn't in the past? Yes, totally agree, right? There's a funny saying in the US where they call it the Mountain Dew mouth, where like it's completely eroded over time because some people consume a lot of like all these sugary, completely artificial drinks and all that. So it's super crazy. But look, in the end, I think dentistry can be much more precise and nobody needs to earn less, right? We don't need to push the margins down, which is currently what's happening, right? The margin pressure pushes down everything and nobody can breathe anymore. And then the quality gets worse. I don't think that's the case that's needed. If we take a step back and look why we screw up things, why things take longer, why things need more human intervention, we can improve that. And we can make sure that we can deliver a denture or a splint or a crown at a good price where everybody still earns money and can focus on the patient instead of focusing on how can I produce this without losing money.
Inspiring words, my man. You're a great salesman. I'm inspired. I'm going to go out there and do some dentures right now.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, look, in the end, it doesn't have to be the way. And we also travel to so many countries where people have even a worse time, right? I mean, just talking to a few friends in India, we just been to Brazil, which is an amazing market, but very, very price sensitive, right? You need to do something. It's not, you can't do it that they get like all these weird veneers that don't fit and it completely chip because nobody take care about occlusion. You can do something that is as functional as beautiful, right? And you don't need to choose. At the moment, I have the feeling people choose either function, then it's very time consuming and very expensive, or like aesthetic, and then they focus only on color and shape and not like, can they actually bite after they get their veneers or their whatever, right? Crowns and bridges.
And the unlock is software. That's the future. I mean, as you said, hardware is kind of done. It's a mature market. Intraoral scanners are very mature now. And I agree. I mean, one thing I'm thinking is, why hasn't a scanner company done this? I mean, you're obviously onto something incredible, and congratulations to you to being the first to really solve this. I'm surprised a scanner company hasn't tried to buy you. Maybe they have.
I think it's too much fun still, and there's too many things to solve. So the downside of that one thing is also it increases the likelihood of being closed down to one side, if you know what I mean. So I think this should be a foundational technology independent of what you use, right? Why should somebody who uses this scanner or this CAD software or this printer shouldn't be helped, shouldn't have access to technology? I think that's not a good idea. Should somebody integrate this on a deep level? Yes, and we do work on that. We work on more than 60 integrations now at the moment at the same time, which is completely crazy. But it needs to happen, right? That's definitely the case. We get this patented, we get all these things done. It's incredibly hard to replicate. And look, if we do one thing only, it's very hard to beat somebody that focuses on solving a specific problem.
And it's an important problem, man. Like we said, with the rise of digital, I just hear it all the time. Forums, I'm sure you're in those forums, Facebook groups, online. Everyone complains about bad bites. It's just like a common plague.
Yeah.
It's a huge common plague on this digital industry. And I would love to see something like this rolled out everywhere. I mean, it's better for the entire industry if we can solve this.
Yeah.
To wrap up, Bjorn, I have a couple of just random questions come to mind. You see all the CAD software, right? So is it exocad dominates lab side? Is that still the case?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you feel and the customers feel, I mean, 3Shape is doing a great job, but the customers, especially the lab, feel that they focus more on the clinical side now with the Trios, and Trios, wonderful product they did, and really they pushed into this scanner market with full force, right? Competing mainly with iTero at the top, and now all the new ones come and try to grab their piece, and they do an amazing job as well, right? I mean, you're the scanner man, right? So you know the drill. And as I said before, if you don't look for a very specific feature, there's no difference, right? You can pick a Medit, you can pick Shining, you can pick Runyas. There's all these amazing scanners out there that still lack a bit of like software and the feel of the big guys. But from the product itself, AlliedStar, I mean, they do a great job, right? Powering a lot of also under the hood other companies. So definitely an opportunity for so many people to just choose what fits their need the best, right? There's so many different phones out there, right? There's not only iPhone, there's a gazillion others. So just pick what suits you best.
I really appreciate your time, Bjorn. I mean, it's been a great chat, super insightful, and probably the most clinically relevant podcast we've had. I guess, guys, if there's one take-home message from Bjorn, why his entire company exists, operator error. You heard it from the man himself. Scanners work. You can pick any scanner you want, but just, I mean, I'm sure Bjorn wants you to keep doing bad bites. No, I'm joking, Bjorn. You have a very noble kind of calling here to solve this, but it's just operator error, guys. Just do some training. Spend that extra 10 seconds chairside.
Yes.
Bjorn was talking about margin finder and how abysmal it is. Just prep a little better. You use loops. use retraction cord. When you take a bite, examine the bite. If you're having a lot of issues with your quadrant scans, and your lab will never complain, but if you're getting issues with crowns not fitting, the most common thing I hear across all the different groups I'm part of and people asking me questions is, my scanner sucks. And yeah, it really just comes down to spending that little extra moment chairside where it's critical, making sure your data is correct, etc.
Yeah.
Bjorn, any last words before we wrap up today?
Yeah, no, look, we love to be that third eye watching and making sure the quality is good. We love to help, right? So you mentioned so many things, and we push overall quality. We love to see better dentistry worldwide. So we offer free calls on our website. You can just go there, book a demo. We show you how it works. We help you on all kind of other stuff on the digital workflow, because we want to see all of our users succeed and remove all the headache. So it's easy. Just go on the website, try it for free, reach out to us. Love to have a chat.
Thank you so much for your time, Bjorn. And again, guys, that is Bite Finder. Check it out if you're having a lot of issues with your bite, or you just want to improve what you're already doing. This is a software that's, I don't want to say hidden in the clinical side. People know of it. It's very well known in the lab side. I just think more people need to know about this stuff because, look, data is everything. And if you're struggling with these cases that come back incorrect and you're pulling your hair out, it just comes down to data. So thank you so much, Bjorn. There's so many exciting things that you are doing. We're super excited to keep following your trajectory. You're doing amazing things. And I'm really inspired by you, quite frankly, and looking forward to what you release in the future.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, you do the same with education, right? You make all this closed thing, this sales pitchy things available online and go into the weeds of all the different options and share that. So I really think that is incredibly important and you do a great job. So very happy to be here and see you again very soon.
I appreciate it, Bjorn. Thanks again, guys, for listening. Thanks again for watching. If you're seeing us live, Bjorn was showing his xSNAP. I do recommend checking that out in the podcast episode. But like, comment, share, subscribe, etc. Share it with your colleagues. And once again, I really appreciate your support of the Digital Dentistry Decoded podcast. Until the next episode, I'll see you guys there.